Hello, everybody. It is time for our chill Friday hangout. If you would like to grow as an artist and you can't take an art class, we've got everything you need here at Art Prof: critiques, tutorials, professional development, and workshops. Tell me in the chat, everybody, how was your artistic week? Any new projects, progress on what you have been up to? I'll show you guys what I have been up to. Of course, I haven't really worked on it, but I've got plans. That counts, doesn't it? What I have here is the Sweeney Todd painting I've been working on. And so this is actually a hard copy printout. And you can see here I've painted the fire from the furnace. And I was experimenting with the faces, like how much paint to put on. I did this one, and this one's a disaster. It looks really bad. Like, look at how terrible the red looks. It really is not good. I was thinking this would be all dramatic, but it just doesn't work at all. And so I'm much happier with the pink version. Although I love that I posted this on Instagram and Kat DM'd me. She's like, no, you should add more pink. And then proceeded to create a digital sketch for me. That was really fun. I love it when brilliant, constructive feedback, it just gets plopped into my lap. Because I don't know that a lot of people have that opportunity. It's just when you work with people who are smarter and younger than you, it actually works out really well. So Avi started largest canvas yet. That's a really great experience. I know sometimes working on a bigger scale can feel very intimidating for a lot of artists. And yes, you do have to shift your technique and how you go about making the piece. I remember the first time I did a 7-foot tall drawing and I realized, oh shoot, I need to get on a stepladder to be able to see what I'm doing. That was a real change. And you know something? After I did that, I was like, I'm not doing that again. That was a lot of work. It was sort of hard to get up and down and look at it from a distance. It, for me, was a little bit disruptive in terms of the drawing process. And I just decided that wasn't going to happen. Cleaning your guinea pig cage, Jen. I love that you have guinea pigs as well. We have 4. We have Pom Pom and Gumby. They're the babies. And the older ones are Jub Jub and Yo Yo, who is getting really large. We didn't think he was going to be the big one, but apparently that's who he is. Nancy went to favorite park, had my watercolors with me today, winged it, and painted a bridge. Loved the whole experience. That's great. Plein air, my favorite thing in the whole world. So exciting to go to a place, experience it, paint it. Tell me in the chat, who here has ever done plein air before? And tell us in the chat, maybe if you've never done it, but you'd like to do it. Or if you've never done it before and you have no interest, which is totally fine as well. And that would also be my opportunity to remind you guys, did you know I have another YouTube channel? I know, it's crazy, but Clara's Art Adventures, and the link is in the video description below. I see this channel, it really is my personal creative space where I don't chase the algorithm. I don't think about what does the audience want? How do I teach them? There are some teaching elements in there, but it's very story driven. So different than the tutorials we do here where we really want people to be able to do a certain technique. I might mention a few things, but it's really about the experience. So the thing about those videos is that they're very meandering. They don't get to the point quickly, but to me, that's what plein air and the travel experience is like, that you don't know what you're going to see, and that's part of the fun. So to me, it sort of makes sense that I would edit the videos that way. And the pacing's very slow. It's sort of like the Andrew Raftery video that I posted. I intentionally edited it very slow because I felt that that wouldn't be a good fit for the way Andrew's work is. Remember, tell me in the chat your questions. This is your opportunity to pick my brain. And we also have Art Prof Mail. So you guys can see what somebody sent me this week. And you can send me Art Prof Mail anytime you want. I love it when you guys send me things. People have sent me postcards, anything that you'd like to send us. The link to our snail mail address, it is on our website, and it is on the contact page. So feel free, send me any snail mail you would like, and I can unbox it here on the stream. We also have Josephine says plain air is life. I agree. Chell, first woodcut printmaking lesson on Monday. Oh, I'm so excited to hear that. Woodcut is just so fantastic. It's such a unique printmaking technique because it is so blunt, and you have to be very decisive about your choices in woodcut because you either carve it out or you don't. There's no in between. And that's one thing that I enjoy about it is so bold, just inherently as a material. Retrospective says, I've got an exam tomorrow. Hopefully I pass it. I've just tried wasabi. It's nice, but pretty bitter and spicy. I'm not a wasabi fan. I'll put a little bit in my soy sauce, but I'm not one of those people that like loads up their sushi with wasabi. Jay is asking, what is your technique on avoiding creative blocks? I don't know so much that I avoid them as much as I learn to deal with it when it happens, because most of the time I'm just trying to make work. I mean, for real, I'm not kidding you guys. If I sit down and I make work, that's a huge win for me, big time. I know that's a really low bar, but the thing is, life is really busy. It's hard to carve out time for that. And for me, if I sit down, even if it's not great results, that's a huge win. So you just lower your expectations. Things will go a lot better for you. But when I do get a creative block, one thing I do like to do is switch media. So if painting is really frustrating me, I'll do a small sculpture. I'll switch to colored pencils. It sort of gets me out of the space that's frustrating me, because painting's really frustrating sometimes. And if I do something in clay, it's just a totally different set of circumstances. And usually that gets me out of it. If not, I will go do something else, something totally unrelated. And other times I just take a break. And it's okay. Take a break. You need to take breaks. This idea that you need to draw every day, it's fine if that works for you. But for a lot of people, the whole draw every day thing is just very stressful. I know I could never keep up with that at all. And by the way, everybody, I did post something on the community tab, but quick announcement, we are changing our live stream schedule. We used to stream on Sundays. We're not going to stream on Sundays anymore. And the Tuesday streams, which used to be in the evenings, are now being moved to 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm really sorry we had to cut back, but honestly, it's for my own sanity because this job is really hard. It's very time consuming. I'm managing a staff of 6 people. You guys probably know that I do everything, like literally everything. And I just really need to cut back because, first of all, I've got teenagers and wow, they really need you, even though they don't want to be near you most of the time. But I really need to be here more for my kids. So that does mean weekends and evenings, because that's usually the times I have to spend with them. But also, I just am doing too much. And I love working. That's what gets me excited. But I have definitely been overdoing it. And I'm somebody who's sort of overdoing it anyway. But the degree of overdoing it that I've been doing has not been good. And so I need to cut back on the live streams. We're going to keep everything else the same. But I just needed to cut back on something. And the live streams were the thing that were easier for us to shift. So sorry for those of you who can only catch us on Sundays, but I did want to have one afternoon one and one evening one, so that way we catch people at different time zones. We also have Sammy. What is your favorite brand of acrylic paint? Currently want to upgrade? Probably Golden. There are so many other acrylic brands that I know exist. I haven't tried a lot of them, but Golden has very good quality materials. They always have pretty strong pigments. I mean, it depends on what you buy. If you buy a hue color, you're not going to get pigment that's quite as strong. It's got a lot of filler in it. But in general, I've tried a lot of their paints. I just tried the fluid acrylics, recently tried the open acrylics. I've used the heavy body, and all of them are very good quality. So that would be the one that I recommend. The other thing is, if you want to try a paint that's more expensive, but it sort of breaks the bank for you like it does for a lot of people, one thing you could do instead is just buy a couple tubes of that more expensive paint. So if you just buy, I just really want cadmium red and golden, and maybe I'll buy other colors that are a little bit cheaper. I think for a lot of people, they don't paint with one brand. I know with soft pastels, I draw with like 4 different brands because each brand is a little bit different. So I'm a big fan of mixing and matching your supplies. Nancy's asking, it's considered plein air, even if all I used was a sketchbook and a water brush. Well, that's what I do. So either I am a big fake or yes, I think it counts. I think if you're outside, whatever you're doing. Chrono says, I'm good digitally, but mid-traditionally. Any tips for translating that skill? Draw from life. That is the most productive way to gain fundamental skills that are going to help you across everything. And I know that's not the answer people want to hear, because I understand drawing from life is inconvenient. And people complain about how, oh, well, what if this moves a little bit? But to me, that's sort of the joy of working from life, is that things are not so set in stone the way they are in a photograph. And so you're really drawing something that's a living, breathing organism. Same thing with landscape. People will say to me, oh, well, the grass kept moving in the wind. I'm like, well, try to capture that. So that would be my recommendation. Tell me in the chat, how many of you guys here have worked from life? And what do you think you gain from that experience? Because for me, it is an experience that is just so real. Like, a lot of people tell me that they want to work on color, but what happens is that actually, if you want to learn color, a photograph is the worst thing, because in a photograph, you lose all the nuances that you can see in real life. If I look at a person in real life, I mean, I can see red and the flesh tone. And in a photograph, it all oftentimes, especially if it's not a good photograph, which a lot of the times we don't have access to, although we do have a Flickr page. That's great. So you should use ours, because I can guarantee that our photos are good quality. But even a good quality photo, you're going to lose those nuances of color. And when I can see it right in front of me, I don't lose any of that. I mean, sure, the grass is moving, but to me, that's part of the experience. I oftentimes like it when work has challenges. I once did this sketch of a tofu vendor in Taiwan. I sketched him for, I'm not kidding, 2 minutes, and then he got up and left. I'm like, thanks. But I love that experience. That, to me, is what makes it so much fun. Lisa says, any suggestions when flipping through your old sketchbooks, like a mindset? I guess when I look back on my sketchbooks, I like to see if there's something in my sketchbook that maybe translates to what I'm doing right now. Because I think sometimes when we're in the moment and we're sketching, we're not really thinking about that. But sometimes I will go and flip through a bunch of sketchbooks and I'll realize, oh, wow, I've been drawing little doodles of pears for a little while. Why am I doing that? Because in the moment, you're not thinking about that. But I oftentimes search for patterns. Are there certain things that I find myself drawing a lot about. Is there something that keeps coming up, a certain issue, or maybe I've scribbled a note to myself or something like that. So I always like looking for those patterns. Jen says, been working more with watercolor, surprised by how much difference cold press and hot press paper makes. I have to kind of change my technique when switching papers. Oh, absolutely. For watercolor, people ask me a lot about, okay, which is the best watercolor paint and stuff like that. And I have now been converted to Daniel Smith. Tell me in the chat if you have used Daniel Smith watercolors. I haven't used them a lot, but I was very impressed with the strength of the pigment, and the flow is also excellent. But to be honest, if I had to pick between picking my paper or the paints, it would definitely be the paper. The paper is so influential. And I totally feel you there. If I paint on hot press, I'm a different painter. My personal preference is cold press. I just really like the texture. It's really good for dry brushing, but everybody has their own preference. Yes, I do need to live. It's a very important goal that I have. I mean, you guys know I'm such a workaholic, and I do try absurdly to live that in a healthy way, but it's really hard. Like, even when you have a lot of experience managing your time and family and stuff like that, it's such a slippery slope. And I know I've just been pushing it a little bit too much. And Jennifer, first time here. Fantastic. Wanted to tell you, watching Art Prof has empowered me to start teaching art workshops in town. Thank you for being such an amazing resource and inspiration. That is fantastic, Jennifer. I really think that's such a wonderful thing when we learn something or we see something that makes us feel empowered. I mean, I'm all about the power trip, about the control, because I'm a control freak. But I do think that sometimes the thing about being an artist and gaining skills is we want to feel empowered somehow, whether it's our knowledge of materials or learning something. For example, I think one of the reasons why people want skills is they want to somehow feel responsible for the results. So you can do a painting, and let's say you did something and you go, oh, I really, really like that. And then you say, but I don't know how I did that. Who here has had that thing happen where it's just like a happy accident? Like, it just happened to look great, but you have no idea how to replicate the experience again. And so I think the thing about skills is that when we have the skills and we can have an intent, we're going to say, I want to get this result. And then we do it and we get that result. To me, that's very empowering, because you know you can do that. It wasn't just something that happened totally randomly. Bog Vetch says, thinking about it, drawing from life, developing a relationship with the subject helps me let go of the pressure of doing well. Yes. Especially whenever I've gone to life drawing, talking to the model is always interesting. I always like to do that in between the breaks, because they've told me so many cool things about themselves that absolutely goes into the work. It's good, but feels more difficult. It is. At first, if you don't have tons of experience drawing from life, it absolutely is a big leap. I understand that. But I will tell you, the more often you do it, you'll get more used to the pacing. And ultimately, you will get a really strong base for observation. Good comment from On. Working from life gives better understanding of form and dimension. Best way to pick up observational skills too, in my experience. Working from a photo is different and stilted. It's apples and oranges. I mean, when I work from a photo, I'm a different artist. I have to really shift things, and I had to spend a lot of time doing workarounds, because I'll look at something and I'll say, oh, okay, I know that looks kind of weird in the photo. I'm going to have to compensate for that. Now, the reason I can do that is because I have experience working from life. And so in my head, I can reason through a situation. I can look at a lighting situation and say, you know what? In the photo, it's sort of wonky. But because I have experience understanding highlights and shadows, I can tweak it to get it a little bit better. And yes, Sonnet, the live format is different. These are vertical streams. This is brand new to YouTube. It's something we're trying out. I know some people are not as into it, but the main difference for us on our end is that if we stream vertically like we are right now, we do end up in the shorts feed. Whereas if we stream horizontally, it's just people who find us in their subscriptions feed. So it's very limited. So being here, showing up in the shorts feed, people are able to find us that way. So actually tell me in the chat, who here found us through the shorts feed? Because I know a couple people have already told me that. And I'm excited about that because as much as I love all you guys who have been here for a long time, you are a hardcore audience. We're always trying to reach new people. So this is something we're trying. We may go back. I don't know. But the views have increased and we have gained a lot more people who we otherwise wouldn't have encountered. Brandon says, any advice for having fun while drawing? I sometimes feel guilt when I'm enjoying myself while drawing. Like if I'm not miserable, I'm doing it wrong. Who told you that? You got to get rid of that, like 100%, Brandon. I had a professor in art school. He was my sophomore year painting professor. He used to say to us all the time, if you're not having fun, you're doing something wrong. So don't buy into this artist romance stuff that people do. I think it's sort of an annoying stereotype. Oh my gosh, here is an example. Okay, has anybody watched there's a Benedict Cumberbatch show on Netflix. It's a limited series, and it's called Eric. And it just released yesterday. I was so waiting for it to come on. So the premise of the show is that he is a puppeteer. I mean, he's sort of like a Jim Henson, like he started Sesame Street type of thing. And it's about him dealing with the loss of a child. His son has gone missing. And there's this one scene where he has this, artistic moment. I was so mad about the scene. I mean, it sort of fits with his character, but I feel like, come on, do we need another scene like this? So basically he's like drawing furiously and doing all that and getting all inspired. And he's drinking vodka, like just downing vodka the whole time. I was like, we don't need that stereotype. I mean, I don't drink, period. But it's like, come on, you could have given that to us. So this whole concept that you have to be tortured and upset. I mean, a lot of the artists friends I have are some of the most well-adjusted, kind people. Like they're fine. So, and everybody has stuff in their lives. I'm not saying you have to be well-adjusted to be an artist, but there's no way you should be when you're drawing. I'm curious for you guys in the chat, how many of you feel that the artistic process is fun for you? And is it mostly fun? Or is it just a little fun? For me, I don't describe it as fun as much as I would describe it for me engaging. That I feel very stimulated and very alive. And I'm on my toes and I love that. It is fun sometimes, but most of the time it's more that for me. And it depends on the artist. I mean, yeah, sometimes it is fun. Just depends on what you're doing. Oh yeah, the pastel drawing in the back. You guys see this? I decided to switch it up. I was being really boring before, but actually I never finished this piece. This is a pastel drawing that I did a long time ago, and it's a scene of a setting that the bread fairy did. She served us a lunch that was on her porch, and so that's the table setting. I did that so long ago. I never finished it though. Thank you so much, Alexandria Wong, for the super chat, and also Nancy for the super sticker. Thank you so much. Those little things add up. Keep them coming, everybody. Support us, because, gosh, we're almost on 10 years, and I'm like still asking for support. Like, Clara, shouldn't you have figured this out by now? Just, I don't know. I don't really like charging people tons of money. Maybe that's a problem. Actually, who saw this? In the New York Times this week, there is an article about online platforms that are being created to help and counsel artists with their careers and what they offer. And honestly, I was like a little insulted I wasn't in that article. That's so stupid. I'm not trying to say I deserve that, but I was reading the thing. I'm like, we're doing all the things. Except, okay, there's one thing we are not doing. And so a lot of the platforms they were talking about, I think one of them was art storefronts. It's that ad, it comes up all the time on Instagram. That's like, we give you free website and social media help for life. And then I read somewhere that if you want to sign on to them, it says in the article, I think it's something absurd. It's like over $1,000 to sign on. And there are all these people who have signed on. I'm like, God, I'm a terrible business person. But the main thing they said about all these platforms that are offering career counseling and stuff like that is that in the marketing, they all say, if you do stuff with us, if you sign up, you're going to get success. You're going to get shows. You're going to win grants. You're going to do this. And it occurred to me, I thought this was really strange. It's like, we never do that. We never tell people, you're going to be amazing at watercolor. We don't promote, let's say, our Patreon group. We don't say, join this, and you're going to have the career of your life. If you join, let's say, our Open Studios Club, you're going to get your exhibitions going. It's sort of funny to me that like it never occurred to me to talk about our platform in that way. I guess because I'm just so focused on the learning and the teaching that for me, it just feels strange to be so focused on the results. Because the whole thing about the art world, as I think you guys know, is that there's no guarantee of anything. So I would feel terrible if I had people in Open Studios Club right here, and I said, okay, you join, you're going to get grants, you're going to get this, I'm going to show you how to do this. I was like, I feel really like fundamentally uncomfortable with that. But I'm reading the article and they're like, oh yes, this platform charges $80 to $200 a month. I'm like, what? Like, we're doing something wrong, guys. The Patreon group that we run is $20 a month. Like, it's like, dude, doing it all wrong. Yeah. So who read that article? Because I was very curious about that. And as I read it, I was like, I think I'm going to contact this journalist and tell him my point of view, because we sort of fit in that we offer those types of things. But I think maybe the difference that they were after is the marketing, the way that they promise things and have such high fees. Sonnet, thank you so much for the super chat. Seriously considering making some drastic changes in my career so I can return my focus back to art, the time when I was most happy. That's fantastic. The thing I would say, that's good advice for everybody, because I know a lot of people here are looking to work professionally or they want to start selling more or whatever. And tell me in the chat if you're one of those people that you want to sort of cut back on what you've been doing, your bread and butter, so that you can do more art. My recommendation is do it a little bit at a time, because I think there's this notion that I want to be a professional artist, let's drop everything and do that. I think that's a terrible idea. I think doing things a little bit at a time, you pick up more experience, and then when you really are ready to make a big transition, it's not as scary. I would be terrified to do that. I would definitely do things a little bit at a time. And I'll tell you, I still kind of feel like I'm doing that. I know that sounds weird, but the whole illustration thing. I mean, I'd sent out my portfolio several months ago. I'm working on some new pieces right now, and I have enough going on that I don't really think about it. I know some people send out their portfolio and they're really like stressing about people getting back. And I'm like, it's on the back burner. Fine. I mean, I would like to do it, but it's just not on my mind every day, the way it is for some illustrators who really are like pushing freelance illustration. Okay, so Avi found us on Shorts on Also, fantastic. So glad you guys are all here. Jenna says, I paint with watercolor, but wondering if you have any tips on cleaning masking fluid from the brush so it's not ruined. I don't know. I have never really used masking fluid. I mean, I know what it's for. I've seen other people use it. I'm not that into it. I feel like I can't plan that far ahead. So maybe somebody here in the chat knows how to clean that. I mean, it's liquid latex. Isn't that what it is? I feel like maybe the brand might have something on that. A lot of companies, if they don't have it on the packaging, sometimes they have information, technical information. I feel like Golden does a great job. They have so much information. So look that up. If not, I bet you anything somebody here knows because this is a global research team. Most of the time I say, I don't know. And then one of you pops in with the answer. It's fantastic. It means I don't have to work as hard. Interesting. So Shorty Angel says, artistic process is the place I feel the least anxious. Actually, for me, a lot of it's just being distracted. I spend a lot of my life trying to be distracted so I don't ruminate, because I ruminate really badly. And if I'm doing something, I don't do it as much. Okay, so Mia says, super fun, time flies, feels the most free. And great point from Chrono, we're not just talking about art, okay? Through the media, people romanticize the idea of needing to feel horrible. You don't need to be some kind of a tormented artist to create good works. Absolutely. In fact, I would argue if you're worried about that, you know what that means to me is you're not focusing on the work. The work is the most important thing if you are an artist. It is not important how you feel about it. And it's up and down. I'm not saying that making work is fun the whole time, but it's just inevitable that that's the case. Avi is absolutely enthralled. Alexandria loves being creative. Nancy says always enjoyable. Well, I'm a little bit jealous now because it's never like that for me. Oh, so George did see the article and thought of me. Yeah, I'm not trying to be an egomaniac, but I was like, I think this article is sort of me. I'm like, how come you guys didn't find us? You know what I think it is? It's probably because we don't run ads. Because all those places that were in the article, I think Patty Johnson and Praxis Learning, can't remember the name of the guy, but Art Storefronts. There was another one that I can't remember, but I believe all of those places advertise on Instagram because I've seen them all. Patty Johnson pops up all the time on my Instagram. So I'm curious, have you guys had that experience too? Have you seen those places pop up on your Instagram? Because I hate to say it, but it's sort of getting to the point where I've seen them so many times on my Instagram that it's starting to get a little annoying. That's one of the reasons we don't advertise. I mean, maybe we should, but I just am always conscious of being that person, I've seen them for the 500th time. Oh, I remember the other one. I think it was Milan Art Institute. There's maybe one more. Can't totally remember. Galaxy Mosaic says, kind of feels some people might do well under duress. Some people might do better when they're happier, but it's an individual thing. Probably applies to any practice. Yes. It also has to do with time management. I work really hard to make sure I don't have to make work under stress because I cannot deal, you guys. When I have the feeling that I'm not going to have enough time to do something, like I freak. And so that's why I'm a control freak and why I'm really obsessed with time management, because I just don't want to be in that place where I have a job, I need to get it done, and I know I can't do it in that time frame, at least to the degree of quality that I would like it to be. Okay, so Jen sees it all the time. Yep, Cat's glitter box. Yeah, I don't really get it because I've clicked on some of those links and I just kind of can't believe the marketing. And not Art Storefronts, but there was another one I clicked on, can't remember the name at all, but it just sent me to this page that was just total marketing. And I watched one of the videos and I was like, I don't think I would ever dish out money for something like this because it was just a really bad video. So I sort of am wondering, like, how do these places make money? Or maybe people just don't have experience. Granted, I'm a pretty discerning eye when it comes to stuff like this. Yeah. That's it. That's what I was thinking, Bogvetch. They're going for life coaching or cult vibe. I confess, I sometimes worry about that. I don't want to be one of those professors. So when I was in art school, there were a lot of professors there. I swear they cultivated their own little cult. They actively tried to make that a thing. And you just have these professors, and they'd have these students who just follow them around. They all made art that looked like that professor's art. And I'm just always worried of being that person that, like, oh, I'm just teaching everyone to draw like me, because I don't want to do that. I want you to make the work you want to make, but I'm going to do whatever I can to facilitate making that happen. And I just don't like that thing at all. And I feel like some of the online groups are sort of verging in that area. Probably not as dramatically as art school, but definitely I'm sort of surprised that some of these places get clicks, because for me, the second I know it's an ad, I'm not interested anymore. Adrian says, recently watched your video on why you left RISD. Currently at a crossroads in my career, I've been craving in-person connection. I'm considering attending grad school for my MFA, becoming an illustration professor. Do you have any advice for someone who's considering entering this career path? I'm desperate for advice. Yeah. The thing that I would say is that the thing about illustration is that, first of all, there's very few MFA programs in illustration. I mean, I could probably count them on one hand. The reason is because the field of illustration really is not that heavily rooted in academia. It's different for fine art. So fine art is very much rooted in academia, but illustration is a more industry related thing. And so I do think, while you can have the goal of being a professor, what makes you an effective professor is if you actually have worked in the illustration industry, because you can't really talk to your students about what it's like to work with an art director or how to be a freelancer until you yourself has actually done that. And so what I would recommend doing, I know you're thinking about the MFA, start trying to do some illustration stuff, not even paid work, but doing your own illustration work. Because I recently released that video with Janice Chun, who is an animator at Disney right now. She's my former student. And she said to me, because people ask me all the time about storyboards, and she said, you just got a storyboard. And I was like, really? She's like, yeah, people think they have to just sit around and do gesture drawings all day, but really what they need to do is do a ton of storyboards. And it's sort of like that, where if you want to go into illustration, teach it, do it, whatever, you have to be doing illustration. So Adrian, I haven't seen your work. I don't know if you're doing that. Maybe you already are. Who knows? But the other thing I would tell you is academia is really in a crisis right now, more so than it was when I left, because the pandemic really messed things up. And so the issue is that there just are not a lot of openings. And so the full-time positions, they're becoming more and more rare. And I can tell you at RISD, a full-time position will have 400 applicants. So it's very, very difficult. What a lot of people do is they will, let's say, do adjunct and then have an illustration gig on the side. That's more typical because it's just so hard to get a full-time position. But what I would recommend that you do, Adrian, if you want support, join our art school portfolios group. It's $30 to $40 a month. And it is a place where you can get ongoing support, because I do find that there's just a lot of misinformation online, especially MFAs. I don't know what it is. I feel like there's not as much for BFAs. So a lot of people are really in the dark trying to figure out something. So I'd recommend doing that. So that way you can have that support, because it's nerve-wracking if you can't get the right answers. And we also have some advice about masking fluid. So Jen says, cheap brushes, wash it immediately before it can dry. Yeah, I would definitely not use a nice brush. On Rev says, dip your brush in water and soap before using it, then make sure it doesn't get dried out. Wash it immediately. Use a bad junk brush, though. Yes. See, I knew it. I knew you guys were going to do that for me. Fantastic. And Uma says, in terms of marketing promises, you offer a soft sell. I think it would help to track success of those following you as well as yours, like you had that winner who kept up with an art track. Well, so here's an example that was in the article that, quite frankly, I thought was very frustrating. Is one of the places said something, they sent out some email to their members and said something like, oh, our member, this person won a Guggenheim this year. You can win one too. And I was like, oh my God, are you serious? Do you know how competitive Guggenheims are? I just feel like telling somebody that they can win a Guggenheim. I mean, yes, you can, but it's a little difficult. Like I feel like that's almost enticing people in a way and not really showing them the reality. I mean, I struggle with that too. I don't want people to feel like, oh, I need to give up. But I also want you to understand the reality, which is that so few people win Guggenheims. I mean, the Guggenheim Fellowship, it's not just for artists. It's for people in all fields. So in any given year, maybe there's 4 artists that win. Maybe. It's not even guaranteed. They might just give it to people in the other field. So I found that a little bit frustrating because I just feel like it's like dangling something in front of people that honestly is not really that realistic given how competitive those programs are. We also have testimonials are great, which you have millions of because you provide great content. Thanks. Same thing with testimonials. Like I'm a little uncomfortable about them because I don't want to feel like all just saying, yeah, you're great. But I do try really hard to pick testimonials that are really specific, that talk about a particular thing in our program instead of Clara's great. I mean, I hope I'm great, but anyway. So Josh says, never use masking fluid on a good brush. I actually semi-sharpen the wood end of a junk brush, use that to draw the masking fluid on. Oh, that's brilliant. So you're saying don't just use the brush. You're saying also have something else that you can use to move it around. Awesome. Yeah, so it seems like a lot of people are seeing similar ads. Yeah, me too, Cats. I trust it less. I don't know. It's hard because word of mouth, I still think is the most effective marketing tool. Tell me if you agree or disagree, because we never ran ads. I think I tried a few on Facebook a long, long time ago. It did nothing for us. The harder way to do it is build a following, get to know your community, like all that stuff, which takes forever and ever. And of course, nobody wants to do, which is okay. You know, I understand why you don't want to do that. But I find that really frustrating. And so then I just stopped doing ads altogether. And I just really did not want to be one of those Instagram ads that people go, oh, I'm seeing that again. That really sort of frustrated me. And yeah, the more something advertises, the more I distrust it. Me too. And same thing on YouTube. I feel like I've seen Milan Institute a couple times. Some other ones that I can't remember as well. Reb is asking, is it all right to produce art for art's sake? I'm retired, not thinking about selling, but want to continue to learn. Absolutely. You don't have to make art for anything other than what you want to make it for. Honestly, the whole selling have a career thing, it's a different life. So here's an example. My former RISI professor, Tony Janello, I do have a video with him. He's one of my most important mentors. I remember when I knew him as an art school student. So I had the chance to go to his studio, and he doesn't do any of that. He doesn't sell. He's not on social media. He doesn't show with the gallery. He doesn't do any of that. He just makes his work. And I remember thinking at the time, now remember I was like 21, that why doesn't he do shows? why isn't he out there promoting himself and having a career and showing in galleries? And I remember being very perplexed by that. And maybe this is just me being bitter. I can't help it. Sorry, I've been around the block many times. Now that I see just all the stuff that goes along with doing all those things, and there's nothing wrong with doing those things, but it's a huge amount of work, and a lot of it has nothing to do with being an artist. A lot of it is marketing and all that stuff and paperwork. And now I get it. I totally get why he was doing that. And so I would say definitely make the art, and you don't have to show it to anybody. So one of the things that I tell people is that, okay, you don't want to do those things, but you're saying, yes, I want to learn. So hang out here. I hope you learn from the streams, but also if you really want to learn, join our Discord. Our Discord is free. Anybody can join. And I'm in there every day talking to people and helping people out. And if you want more access to staff, like critiques from me, you can join our Patreon group. That's $20 a month. Sorry, I know I'm advertising right now, but it really is. The thing about the Patreon group, it really is people who want to learn. Some people in there want to sell, and that's fine, but it is very much about the learning. It's not about the marketing. Like if somebody asks me about marketing, sure, I'll answer. But most people in there just really want to learn and improve and do new things. We also have Dr. who says, how do I get a cloudy look to my paint like the one in your background? Okay, well, this is actually not a painting. This is a pastel drawing, but I do have one that's a painting. Ah! Shoot, there goes my painting. Okay, so here, I do have cloudy stuff. Do you see this? So in this painting, there's like this cloudy stuff here. There's cloudy stuff here. And really all that is glazing. Very, very thin paint. There's tons and tons of layers. I mean, there's got to be like 15 layers of paint in there. So it's glazing. And we do have a video on that. And also in some of our other streams, if you just look up Art Prof glazing into YouTube, you'll find a video on that. And I also talk about it quite a bit in our oil painting video. So if you look up oil painting intro, I do break down the specifics of how to do that. Glad to see you lurking. Who else is lurking? Say me. I love you lurkers. I know that it's sometimes intimidating to chat or make conversation, but I do like seeing your names. So just say me into the chat. And we also have, love this. You guys are like having a little party in there. Reb Blunt. When in art school years ago, they used to say survive, sell insurance, and in the back you do artwork. It really depends on the person, because I know some people who really like art here, job here. I find that for some people, if they have an art job, it sometimes takes away all their energy, and then they really don't have the energy to make their own work. Like my spouse was an animation major, got a job at an animation company right after school, and they worked him so hard. I mean, he was wiped by the end of the day. He never did his own work. And it depends. Some people really like being in that environment, but I saw how that really grated upon his own personal time to make art. And so the other way to do it, some people will do a non-art job and then they really feel like the art is its own space. And here's an example. I have a colleague who told me he was a waiter for 15 years. And he said he painted so much because of that. And he said now he's the department head of a big art school. He said he actually doesn't paint that much because he's just so involved in all the administration and paperwork and stuff like that. So that is very common for that to be the case for people. I mean, really, it's a lifestyle choice. It doesn't have a lot to do with what type of artist you are. Yes, it's okay. It was a rough one. You know what, though? It's so undeveloped that I don't really care. So yes, let me check. Yeah, it's okay. I think what helps, it's on pastel board, which is a very big difference. Oh, we have to do the unboxing. I totally forgot about that, you guys. Okay, here we go. Let's see what's in here. We have got, look at this. Thank you so much. Stone paper notebook. Who has used one of these before? Because somebody in the, let me see if this person wants to be anonymous. Oh, okay. It's from Nancy. Okay, just want to double check on that thing. Yes, so Nancy told me about this, had brought it up in one of the workshop discussions, and I was like, what is a stone notebook? I've never seen that before. So yes, I'm going to try it on one of the next live streams. And by the way, everybody, if there's an art supply that you would like to see us try in a short, in a live stream, you can do that by going to the link below. It says Art Supply Reactions, or just go to our website. And if you just type Art Supply Reactions into the search bar, you will find a page that is going to have our Amazon wish list. You can pick something off the wish list, or if there's something specific you want to send me, you can just tell me in the Discord or send me an email, whatever, and I will put the item on the wish list, because I've gotten to try so many cool supplies that I never would have been able to do. People have sent me the open acrylics from Slate. Nancy has sent me so much. Another Nancy. You're both very generous. So I'm so happy to have that. Yay! I love seeing all these names. Fantastic. I'm so glad you guys were all willing to say hello. That's great. Avi's asking, does everyone here varnish their paintings? I guess I really haven't, because I'm not really a painter. But I guess if I was selling something long term, I would. Actually, it makes me wonder what Lauren uses, because I don't believe I've ever talked to her about her varnishing. Yeah, that is a concern. Worried monetizing my art will suck the joy out of the art. Well, it really does become a business. I mean, when you start selling things, it's no longer about the art. It's about, oh, I got the invoice, make sure that I'm logging this information. I mean, it's spreadsheets. It's what it becomes. So that's the difficult thing. And I had to do that here, where certainly for me, the engaging part is the learning and talking to all you guys. It's the fun stuff. The not so fun stuff is payroll and taxes. And I hate doing that stuff. But you know what, though? For me, it's worth it in terms of the creative freedom and agency that I have over what I do. Because when I was at RISD, I didn't have to do any of that stuff. Payroll, taxes, like, ugh, not in my wheelhouse. Well, I didn't have to do it. But, oh my God, I was just constantly begging for approval. And what's frustrating about academia is that you're in a department. Departments are different sizes. But ultimately, it's like you're stuck with these 10 people forever. And those 10 people become incredibly important. And I don't like that. I mean, yes, I like being in charge. I get it. But it was just absurd that because of the structure of academia, you would have to care so much about what this one person thought of you. And I just hated that. I hated thinking, oh, I need to make sure I'm on their radar. I guess I should ask them to lunch. Like, I was always doing stuff like that. And I mean, it does help when you get to pick your own staff like I did here. But that is something I will not give that up for the world, is having that creative agency over what I want to do. Yes, you should try Discord. Discord is great. I love it. Actually, our staff recently transitioned from Slack to Discord, and we're so much happier. Slack stinks. I was really, really tired of that. Yogurt says, so grateful to have discovered you and your team so early in my art journey. Thank you all for the amazing free resources. I can't believe we've kept it up. I mean, I kept thinking for the longest time, because of all our budget woes, I was like, oh my God, we're going to have to set up a paywall. I don't know if I can do this anymore. But we're still doing it. It's been almost 10 years. I still want to keep doing it. And I used to say stuff like, oh, I have to charge people tons of money. I'm going to shut it down before I'd rather do that. I don't think I'm going to do that. But we are trying very hard to keep that up. And it's not a good business thing. I think we would have more money if we had paywalls, but that's always been fundamental to Art Prof, is that we don't charge for the content. We do charge for feedback and critiques, that type of thing that's customized for the person. Yeah, it seems like a lot of people here have never heard of stone paper. Okay, well, I'm going to have to report back. Kiwi says, any advice for figuring out the meaning of artwork for the MFA artist statements if you haven't figured it out yet? I'm excited about my work, but I just can't figure out what it means to me yet. Yeah, that's really common. I know I've been on both ends, where sometimes I will make work and I'm not really sure what it's about. And it takes me a while to figure that out. Sometimes it's the opposite, though. I know exactly what it's about, and then making the work is a whole other thing. So I think a lot of people feel that way. But the main piece of advice that I give to people for statements, artist statements, for anything, not just MFAs, is to write it as you're making the work. Because I think sometimes what people do is they make the work, finish it, and then they write the statement. And then what sometimes happens is they have a statement, it doesn't match the work. So I should be able to look at the statement and look at the work and say, okay, I see how this relates. But I've seen statements where I'm like, are we looking at the same artwork? I don't see the connection at all. And so that's a really good thing to do. And also to start that statement early. A lot of people, like I said, they do it at the last minute, and that's a really bad thing. So we do have options to help you guys with that. For example, we do have an editing service right here. And that is where I do deep hands-on editing on what you're doing. But you can also get generalized feedback in the Art School Portfolios groups. And this is really fun because you're able to get ongoing feedback. The services is a one-time thing. So that's one of the nice things about the groups, is that I can't help somebody in one day. It's it really takes time for a lot of these things to really sink in well. And On says, I'm studying computer science. I can understand that. You get so used to being around the same people after years, it can be exhausting. Yeah, and here I talk to so many people across the world. I've met up with people all over the world because of this. And I really enjoy that, because the idea that 10 people decide what I get to do, I don't like that. Then again, there's the whole business thing, which is a lot of work. Who here is a small business owner or has been? I'm curious, because nobody gets it. And until you've owned your own business, you have no idea the lives that we lead to make this happen. Okay, so Bogvetch has used stone paper. Very cool. Lisa is asking, how can you tell if you've stalled in improving your art? Usually, if you get feedback and you feel like you're just hearing the same thing over and over again, it depends on who you ask. I mean, I would hope that somebody working with you on a longer term basis would make an effort to not tell you the same thing all the time. That's not a good thing. But sometimes if it just seems like you're always talking about the same things when you get feedback, that's usually something. Or at the very least, it says that you're not innovating, that you're not really growing with the process, that you're sort of doing the same thing over and over again. I think if you feel like you've stalled, that's an indication. Now, whether that really is the case or not, if you feel that way, that probably is totally valid. So if you feel like that, sit down and work through, look at your past pieces and ask yourself why you feel you're doing that. And then, of course, get feedback as well. Chrono says, want to make more meaningful paintings, but I want to avoid them looking pretentious or cringy. Any tips? You know what you got to do? You got to make that pretentious, cringy work. Here's why. People will say to me all the time, well, I don't want to make something cliche. I understand that, and it's good to be aware of that. But sometimes when you go into that, you don't really work it out of your system. So what I say to a lot of people is, listen, draw the cliche, draw the cringy thing, get it out of your system. Because once you've done that, it's a lot easier to figure out what you do want to do, as opposed to just being told, I can't do this, I can't do that. That's not fun. That makes you feel like you don't have any options. And so instead, draw the cliche, let it be cringy, let it be pretentious. I do that when I write. Whenever I write things, this is my method of starting. I write it in the dumbest way possible. Like I just bleh onto the paper. Like I don't try to sound smart. I don't try to sound articulate. I just say whatever. And if anybody read that page of whatever, they'd be like, oh my God, you can't write. You're really stupid. But that's the thing, you got to start somewhere. It's much easier to fix and tweak something that's bad than to sit around saying, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. It's better to just let it be cringe because you'll change it. You'll make sure it's not cringe, but you got to start there. Which of your hot white men do you have in the studio today? Well, I've Aaron Tveit. He's back there. And Hugh Jackman's he's just on my desk. I love that he's here. He's also over there. He's very big. I have to find a permanent place to hang him up because right now he's just on the floor. And also, I don't know if you guys can see. Oh no, I guess you can't. I do have my skeleton in the background, and his name is Logan. Who here is enjoying all the Deadpool stuff? There's so much stuff coming out with him and Ryan Reynolds. It's really exciting. Like every time I open Instagram, he's got something. It's fantastic. I just love that. Wow, a lot of you guys here. Fantastic. Yeah, I'm definitely one of those people, Kiwi, where if you tell me I can't do something, I'm like, I want to do it more. And actually, I've actually done them with students before where I'll sort of nudge them in a certain way just to entice the challenge, and they do it. They rise to the occasion. It's really fantastic. I don't know. There's something about that. You just want to be a rebel and, just get people to do that. Everybody, we are doing registration right now for our July and August workshops. We are offering markers, watercolor tricks and techniques, and expressive figure drawing, and pets and animals. You want to get in that registration as soon as you can because we need to get enough people to register in order for the workshop to run. We also, I believe, have one spot in the flowers workshop that's coming up very, very soon. And that would be great to work with you guys that way. I love getting to work in a small group of artists. Art Prof has a podcast. It's available on Spotify and also on iTunes. Visit artprof.org. We have tons of info there that is not on YouTube. Use the search bar and subscribe to our channel for more critiques, business tutorials, all that stuff. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.